This last video we're going to look at implementing an erosion and sediment control plan. So to review what we looked at in the previous videos, you need to define the earthworks area, including the buffer areas, figure out what your internal roads are all going to be, and then implement the perimeter controls. So that includes your clean water diversion channels, and anything else you might need to do to sort of make sure that you're minimizing the amount of water that's running onto your site. Then implement your primary sedimentation controls, sediment ponds, silt fences. Now it might be that you do this in stages. You might put the silt fences in to provide initial protection and then build your sediment ponds. So this is not do it all at once in the beginning and then that's it. You may be implementing it as you go. The other thing you need to be doing when you're implementing your plan is figuring out how can you minimize the amount of area that you're going to expose to it. Are you going to stage the works or not? Oftentimes it's not economical to do that, but if you can, it's a good way of reducing the amount of erosion that's going to happen on your site. You need to protect topsoil and manage any stockpiles, so you need to be considering any material you've got stockpiled on site because that can erode as well. Progressively deploy the internal erosion and sediment controls. As I mentioned, you won't be doing it all at once. You'll probably put the silt fence in and then you might move on to doing the silt pond. As you open up areas, you may be putting new sediment controls in there, erosion and sediment controls in there, and you may be decommissioning ones as you move out of those areas and reinstate them. So it's an ongoing process, moving those controls around the site as required, opening them up, decommissioning them. Stabilize the works site as the works progress. So when you're finished with a section of land, you need to stabilize it as soon as possible, because the sooner you can stabilize it, the less erosion is going to happen from that particular area. You need to manage and monitor the erosion and sediment control system. It's not a matter of just put it in and forget about it. You should be doing daily, weekly inspections to make sure that everything's still in place, that silt fences haven't fallen over, that the diversion channels haven't gummed up, that everything works. And before it rains, you need to be doing an inspection as well. If there's a rainstorm on the horizon, you need to be walking over it, making sure that everything's in place, ready to receive the rain. You might do other things, like for example, if you know that there's rain coming, you might roll the surface that's exposed to try to lock it all in, so that it's a more impermeable surface, it's less likely to be eroded, and then it's going to not get as wet as it would have otherwise. If you can provide, if you can tighten up the surface, compact it, then the water's also not going to flow into the soil structure, and there's going to be less wet soil to deal with after the storm. And also clean out accumulated sediment. So you should be monitoring the silt pond in particular to make sure that it's not filling up with sediment. When it does fill up, you need to be getting an excavator and trucks in to remove the sediment away from the site. You also need to be looking at the drains and any other water flow channels that you've got there to make sure that they're not filling up with sediment as well. And then once you've completed the work, you need to decommission the controls. That is once the permanent stabilization is established. So if you are re-establishing topsoil and grass, you will wait until the grass is fully established before you remove the erosion and sediment control things. So you'll keep the sediment ponds in, you'll keep the silt fences in until there's a full growth of grass there, or whatever vegetation you're using, to make sure that area is once again stable. And just finally, just look at this. This is what an erosion and sediment control plan looks like. So you can see here they're building a road, and there's a stream there. So there's going to be a bridge going across there. So they're building the road up to the bridge, and there's the different things they're using. So there's the blue is the stream, the Awaruku stream. These symbols here represent silt fences, so they've got silt fences along there, so this is where all the work's happening. You can see they've got SSF as super silt fences, so they are silt fences which are much structurally stronger than your normal silt fence. So they've got super silt fences protecting the Awaruku stream. They've got normal silt fences there. They've got the dirty water runoff, that's the R there, so they're picking up the water as they go, and it's going into a sediment pond there. You'll notice that they would have put the super silt fences in before they started doing the sediment pond, because that would have been earthworks activity. And they've also got some clean water diversion channels along here as well. So you can see that it's not a matter of just putting in one control, it's a matter of putting in layers of it. So there's a silt fence there, there's a silt fence there, and then there it goes into a sediment pond. So you can see that there's different layers of protection, and that's what a good silt erosion and sediment control plan does. It doesn't rely on one layer of protection, it has several layers of protection.